The night felt heavier than usual. The room was quiet, but his thoughts were loud. He sat on the edge of his bed staring at the floor, wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. No one knew how tired he really was. Not physically. Spiritually. Emotionally. He had been strong for too long. By day, he smiled. He worked. He talked like everything was fine. But when the lights went off and silence filled the room, the mask slipped. The questions returned. God. Where are you? He had prayed. He had waited. But heaven felt silent. Bills were stacking up. Opportunities kept slipping away. Doors that once seemed open were now firmly shut. Every plan he made collapsed at the last moment. It felt like walking forward only to be pushed back again and again. He remembered when his faith felt strong. When prayers felt alive. When hope felt natural. Now it felt forced. Mechanical. Like words thrown into the air with no response. Doubt started whispering things he never thought he'd believe. That night, he whispered something dangerous. Maybe I should just stop trying. Not stop living. Just stop hoping. Because hope hurt more than failure. Expectation made the fall harder. If he expected nothing, maybe he wouldn't be disappointed anymore. He lay back and stared at the ceiling. Tears rolled quietly down his face. No dramatic breakdown. Just silent surrender. The kind no one sees. The kind that happens inside when a man feels invisible to the world. And to God. Memories began to surface. Moments when things had worked out before. Times when help came unexpectedly. But his mind quickly dismissed them. That was different, he told himself. This time feels final. Outside, the wind picked up. Rain tapped against the window. It matched the storm in his chest. He felt small. Weak. Forgotten. He wondered if God was watching from a distance, unmoved by his struggle. He reached for his phone, scrolling aimlessly. Looking for distraction. Looking for noise to drown the silence. But nothing helped. Everything felt empty. Even music couldn't fill the gap inside him. Finally, he dropped the phone and closed his eyes. If you're there, he whispered into the dark, I need something. Anything. I can't keep going like this. It wasn't a polished prayer. It was raw. Honest. Desperate. The rain grew louder. Thunder rolled across the sky. But inside the room, there was stillness. He waited for something dramatic. A sign. A voice. A feeling. Nothing came. Just silence. And yet, something felt slightly different, not outside. Inside. The chaos in his chest slowed just a little. The storm wasn't gone. The problems weren't solved. But his breathing became steadier. As if unseen hands were holding the weight with him. He remembered a verse he heard long ago, "Peace I leave with you." He used to think peace meant problems disappearing. Now he wondered. What if peace meant strength while they remain? The silence no longer felt empty. It felt patient. Like heaven wasn't ignoring him. Just preparing something beyond what he could see. His situation hadn't changed. But his perspective began to shift. He sat up slowly. The same room. The same bills. The same unanswered prayers. But the urge to quit had weakened. Not because he was strong. But because something stronger was steadying him, faith didn't return like fireworks. It returned like a small flame. Fragile. Quiet. But alive. And sometimes that's how God works, not with noise, but with presence. He thought about the disciples in the storm. They panicked while Jesus slept. The storm was loud. But the Savior was near. Maybe storms don't mean absence. Maybe they reveal who we trust. What if this isn't the end? He whispered. What if this delay isn't rejection? What if the closed doors are protection? The questions that once destroyed him now started building him. He stood up and walked to the window. The rain was still falling. But the lightning had moved farther away. Storms don't last forever. They move. They pass. They change. He didn't have answers yet. But he had enough strength for one more day. And sometimes, one more day is the miracle. Not instant rescue. Not overnight success. Just the grace to continue. The next morning looked ordinary. The sun rose like always. Traffic moved. People hurried to work. Nothing supernatural happened. But inside him, something steady had awakened. He didn't feel victorious. Just anchored. He made his bed. A small act. But it mattered. It meant he hadn't given up. He answered emails. Made calls. Took steps. Not with excitement. But with quiet determination. Faith isn't always loud. Sometimes it's discipline. Days passed. Some were better. Some were harder. The problems didn't vanish overnight. Bills were still due. Doors were still closed. But he stopped interpreting delay as defeat. He began to notice small things. A friend checking in unexpectedly. An opportunity he hadn't considered before. A conversation that sparked a new idea. None of them dramatic. But together, they formed a pattern. What he once called coincidence now looked like guidance. What he once called silence now felt like strategy. Maybe God wasn't reacting to his crisis. Maybe he was orchestrating beyond it. One afternoon, a call came. A door he thought was permanently shut opened slightly. Not wide. Just enough to step through. It wasn't the dream opportunity. But it was movement. He hesitated. Fear whispered again. What if this fails too? But faith answered differently this time. What if this is the beginning? Courage isn't absence of fear. It's movement despite it. He stepped forward. Not boldly. Not perfectly. But faithfully. And as he moved, clarity increased. Like headlights revealing the road only as you drive. Weeks later, more doors opened. Slowly. Gradually. Not explosively. But steadily. Looking back, he realized something powerful. The breakthrough didn't start with opportunity. It started with surrender. The night he almost quit became the night everything shifted. Not because heaven shouted. But because heaven held him when he was ready to fall. Months later, his life looked different. Not perfect. Not problem-free. But stable. Stronger. The storm that once threatened to destroy him had actually built him. He realized something powerful. The silence he once feared was never emptiness. It was construction. God was building foundations he couldn't see. If his prayers had been answered instantly, he would have missed the growth. If the doors had opened early, he wouldn't have been ready to walk through them. The delay wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The silence wasn't rejection. It was alignment. Looking back, he could trace the pattern. Every closed door redirected him. Every setback refined him. Every tear strengthened him. He understood now, God doesn't always calm the storm immediately. Sometimes he calms the person first. The strength he gained during the waiting season became his greatest asset. Confidence rooted in faith is different from confidence rooted in comfort. He no longer feared silence. Because he learned that God works most deeply in hidden places. The night he almost quit became a testimony. A reminder that breakthrough often begins when surrender happens. He started encouraging others who were in their own storm. Because he knew what it felt like to think heaven was quiet. Don't mistake silence for absence, he would say. God may be quiet, but he is never gone. Every time he faced a new challenge, he remembered that night. The tears. The whisper. The stillness, that memory became proof. If God carried him then, he would carry him again. Faith matured. It was no longer emotional excitement. It was steady trust. He stopped asking, "Why is this happening?" and started asking, "What is this preparing me for?" The storms didn't disappear from life. But panic did. Fear lost its authority. He discovered that growth feels uncomfortable. But quitting would have been permanent. The night he thought everything was ending was actually the beginning of deeper faith. If he could speak to that broken version of himself, he would say, "Hold on. This pain is not pointless." And if you're in your own silent storm right now, remember this: the Lord is not far away. He is not ignoring you. He is shaping you. The night you almost quit might be the night everything shifts. Hold on, because one day, you'll look back at this moment and realize, God was working the whole time. Stay faithful. Your breakthrough is closer than you think.